Members of the Joint Chiefs, leadership of our armed forces, distinguished members of Congress, and all who wear the uniform of the United States, especially the storied 10th Mountain Division. It's a great honor to be here today with all of you. As our President, with the strong support of Congress, will take decisive action to make the strongest military in the history of the world stronger still. All of you have chosen to be part of something larger than yourselves. You've chosen to serve in the armed forces of the United States of America, and let me assure you, you have a champion in the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. It's true. This president has no higher priority than the safety and security of the American people. And from the very earliest days of our administration, your Commander-in-Chief has been fulfilling his solemn oath to provide for the common defense. And President Donald Trump always puts our armed forces and your families first. I've seen it firsthand. On our very first day in office, I witnessed President Trump protect our military from a government-wide hiring freeze, and in May of last year, he signed the largest increase in military spending in nearly a decade. And with the leadership and support of this Commander-in-Chief, Our armed forces have taken the fight to the terrorists of ISIS on our terms, on their soil. Their caliphate has crumbled, and soon we will erase ISIS from the face of the earth. And last August, our president laid out our South Asia strategy to give our warfighters in Afghanistan, in his words, the tools they need and the trust they've earned to fight and win. This president has also secured commitments around the world from our allies, commitments from our NATO allies in particular to pay more for our common defense than ever before. And President Trump has articulated a vision to ensure continued American dominance in land, sea, air, and space. And last fall, our president led negotiations with both parties of Congress, and President Trump signed into law the largest increase in our national defense in a generation. Under President Donald Trump, the days of arbitrary budget cuts to our national defense are over. And finally, in June of this year, while our president engaged in historic negotiations with North Korea, he had our missing fallen on his heart. And as the nation witnessed just a few short weeks ago, thanks to the leadership and compassion of this commander-in-chief, our boys are finally coming home. By signing this legislation today, President Trump is keeping his promise to the American people to rebuild our military, restore the arsenal of democracy, and once again give you, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard the resources and training you need to accomplish your mission and come home safe. The armed forces of the United States of America are the world's greatest force for good, and you can be assured President Donald Trump and our entire administration will never stop fighting for you who fight to defend this nation, past, present, and future. So now it is my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce to you your Commander-in-Chief and a true champion of the men and women of the armed forces of the United States of America, the 45th President of the United States, President Donald Trump.
Thank you, everybody. It's a great place. I've been here before. We love this location. We love this base, and most particularly the people that are working so hard here and so effectively. So I want to start by saying, at ease. Just relax. Do you have seats? You can sit down. Come on. Sit. If you want to stand, you can. We'll just get one big standing ovation, right? Sit down. Thank you. That's pretty good. Everybody's got a seat. Thank you very much. I want to thank our wonderful Vice President, Mike Pence, and say a special hello to the incredible Patriots of Fort Drum and the 10th Mountain Division. Special people. Thank you. A few moments ago, I witnessed your extraordinary capabilities firsthand during an artillery raid demonstration, so I'd like to begin by applauding the 10th Mountain Division Combat Aviation Brigade, along with the 3rd Battalion, 6th field artillery. I hate to say this, but nobody stands a chance against you folks. Nobody stands a chance. I'm here today to sign our new defense bill into law and to pay tribute to the greatest soldiers in the history of the world, the United States Army. Thank you. Thank you. The National Defense Authorization Act is the most significant investment in our military and our warfighters in modern history, and I am very proud to be a big part of it. It was not very hard. You know, I went to Congress, I said, let's do it, we got to do it. We're going to strengthen our military like never, ever before, and that's what we did. I want to say very strongly, there is no better place than right here at Fort Drum to celebrate its passage. No better place. After years of devastating cuts, we're now rebuilding our military like we never have before, ever. Because we know that to survive and having that survival of our freedom, it depends upon the might of our military. And no enemy on earth can match the strength, courage, and skill of the American Army and the American Armed Forces. Nobody's even close. They never will be. We're grateful to be joined today by many of our nation's top military leaders. I'd like to recognize Deputy Secretary of Defense Shanahan, who's with us. Please, Mr. Secretary. People I've heard about all my life. Very prestigious title. I always loved the ring. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? That's got a good ring. Anybody in the audience going to be a member of that someday? I think so. Raise your hand. If you think you're going to make it, raise your hand. Go ahead. Oh, come on. That's all? Only a few? I don't know. I want to thank General Dunford, General Milley, General Neller, Admiral Richardson, General Goldfein, General Engel, and Vice Admiral Ray. Thank you all for your leadership. You are magnificent. We appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you. A very special thank you to the Commanding General of the 10th Mountain Division, Major General Walt Piet. What a special man. Walt, I want to thank you. Where's Walt? Where is Walt? Walt, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Walt is back on American soil after deployment in Iraq, and I just want to welcome you home. You have tremendous respect. They have great admiration and respect for you, Walt. Thank you very much. I also just had the chance to meet Division Command Sergeant Major Jason Rourke, along with 10th Mountain Division Soldier of the Year, Michael Lima. Where's Michael? Where is Michael? Soldier of the Year. Michael. Pretty good. And that's Soldier of the Year, Michael, out of how many? How many? That's a lot of soldiers. 18,000. Do you want to work for me? Thank you, Michael. Great job. We would not be here for today's signing ceremony without the dedicated efforts of the members of Congress who worked so hard to pass the National Defense Authorization Act. I'd like to recognize Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, whose district proudly includes Fort Drum. And I have to tell you about Elise. She called me so many times. I said, I don't want to take her call. She wanted me to be here. I said, I won't be able to. We'll have to change a lot of scheduling. But that didn't suit her. She didn't stop, and here I am. Here I am. Elise, come here. Come here, Elise.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is truly an honor to welcome you to Fort Drum, home of the historic 10th Mountain Division, the most deployed unit in the U.S. Army since 9/11. Thank you for being here to sign the historic National Defense Authorization Act, which includes the largest pay increase, support for our military families, and investing in our military readiness. Climb to glory, 10th Mountain Division. Thank you.
She's an incredible representative. I also want to thank Representatives Don Bacon, Dan Donovan, and Joe Wilson, who are with us today also. Thank you. Where are you? Stand up, please. I did. Stand up. Thank you. Thank you, fellas. Very much. There's another member of Congress here today who is not only an Air Force veteran, but the first woman ever to fly a fighter jet in combat in U.S. history. And I've gotten to know her very well, and she is terrific. Congresswoman Martha McSally. Congresswoman. Thank you, Martha. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you all for fighting for our military and for fighting for our vets. Nobody has made more progress on anything than what we've done with our vets. We have choice approved. You know that. We have so many other things approved for our vets, and it's really moving along well. I think maybe almost as important as choice is accountability. Now when we find somebody not treating our vets properly, you know what we say, right? You're out, get out, you're fired, get out. They couldn't do that. They couldn't do that. Now they can do it. Now they have to treat our vets properly. Our vets are our great people, and they get treated properly. So you have choice and you have accountability, and nobody thought that would ever get approved. They've been trying for many, many decades. Finally, I want to thank a very special group of patriots at Fort Drum, all of the amazing spouses and family members whose love and support make your service possible, whether you like it or not. They make it possible. Please, thank you. Thank you very much. They know. They know, right? Look at him. He's smiling. They know. Last year, we secured a historic $700 billion to rebuild our military, and now the National Defense Authorization Act paves the way for another 1,700. Listen to this now. So we've been trying to get money. They never gave us money for the military for years and years, and it was depleted. We got $700 billion, and next year, already approved, we have $716 billion to give you the finest planes and ships and tanks and missiles anywhere on earth. Nobody makes them like we do. And very, very far distant in this case. Jobs are very important in all cases, but in this case, military might is more important than even jobs. But all of this equipment is made right here in the USA, and it's the best equipment on earth. Nobody makes it like we do. So you have $700 billion and now $716 billion. So congratulations. America is a peaceful nation, but if conflict is forced upon us, we will fight and we will win. Right, General? Right? Right? Better believe it, generals. They're the guys. We're powered by the unstoppable force of the United States Army, very special. With this new authorization, we will increase the size and strength of our military by adding thousands of new recruits to active duty, reserve and National Guard units, including 4,000 new active duty soldiers. And we will replace aging tanks, aging planes and ships with the most advanced and lethal technology ever developed, and hopefully we'll be so strong we'll never have to use it. But if we ever did, nobody has a chance. It all includes 135 brand new, beautiful M1 Abrams tanks, 60 Bradley fighting vehicles, and over 3,000 Joint Light Tactical Vehicles for the Army Armored Brigade Combat Team. New Black Hawk and Apache helicopters, finest in the world, for the Army National Guard. 77 F-35 Joint Strike Fighters, you know, that's stealth. I talked to a couple of pilots, great pilots. I said, how are they? They said, they're hard to beat because you can't see them. It's always hard to beat the enemy when you can't see it. The greatest in the world. Full funding for the B-21 Raider bomber program, 13 new Battle Force ships and support ships, including a 4th Ford-class aircraft carrier and 3 additional lateral combat ships. Funding to modernize our nuclear arsenal, so important. We're doing a major upgrade of our missile defense. But we're spending a tremendous amount of money on our nuclear arsenal. Nobody will have close. We will hopefully never, ever have to use it. But nobody will be close. More than $11 billion for the military construction, including family housing, and we are proudly giving our troops the biggest pay increase in a decade. And I know you don't want it because you're very patriotic. You'll say, just save the money. We're going to pay down debt. Does anybody not want it? Please raise your hand. What's going on here? Are these real patriots? I don't know, General. I don't know. It's the biggest increase in a decade. A strong military also requires a strong economy, and our economy is setting records like never before. We have the greatest economy we've ever had. I think that's going to help us a lot in a lot of ways. It also helps us a lot in funding and doing all of the things we're doing for our great military. We've created almost 4 million new jobs since the election, a number that the media in the back would never have said would be possible if during the campaign. I'm so proud of myself, I didn't call them the fake news media. I didn't call them. I said to myself, I will not today, in front of our great armed forces, call them fake news. We know the real truth, but we won't say it today. But they wouldn't have believed it possible. 4 million new jobs. Nobody would have thought that possible on the campaign trail. If when we were campaigning, Mike, if I would have said that, if I would have said 2 million new jobs, people would have laughed us off the stage. Well, we have 4 million new jobs. Something I'm very proud of, the African American, Hispanic American, and Asian American. The unemployment rates for all three have reached the lowest levels in the history of our country. Unemployment for African American, Hispanics, Asians, the lowest level in the history of our country. Women's unemployment is not, I'm sorry, doing quite as well. It's only the lowest level in 65 years. So we're not doing as well. But we'll do better. I think within about 3 weeks, when the new numbers come out, you'll probably be lowest in history also. Very importantly, the veterans' unemployment rate recently reached its lowest level in nearly 20 years. It's a big one. And we are creating manufacturing jobs again. Remember, during the campaign, they said, oh, you can't create manufacturing jobs. I said, really? We're not going to make things anymore? Is that what it's come to? We're going to have other countries make things. They're going to make things and we're going to buy them. And they're going to have the jobs and we're not. Doesn't work that way. We're doing manufacturing jobs at the fastest pace in many, many decades. No longer are we apologizing for America. Instead, we are now standing up for America. It's called America First, if that's okay with you. We're standing up for our military, and we're standing up for our great American flag. We're standing for our flag. The armed forces have endured continuous combat for the past 17 years, yet since the 1990s, the number of soldiers on active duty was cut by more than 1/3. Our bases and vital equipment were allowed to fall into a state of disrepair, and I saw some of them, total disrepair. But those days are over. Every day the Army is fighting for us, and now we are fighting for you, 100%. No one better understands how stretched our military has become than the soldiers of the 10th Mountain Division. Is that right, General? You were the first conventional combat force to deploy after 9/11. Since then, no division in the Army has been deployed more times to Iraq and Afghanistan than you. You've sent over 9,000 courageous soldiers to 26 different countries all around the world in the past year alone. The 2nd Brigade Combat Team just returned from a rotation at the Joint Readiness Training Center. And later this year, they will once again bravely answer our nation's call and deploy to Afghanistan. Through it all, you've proven to the world, to our country, to your families, that Fort Drum soldiers aren't just tough, you're mountain tough. That's what you are, you're mountain tough. I said to you, General, what's the difference? He said, sir, trust me, there's a difference. So I said, I trust you, General. Right? I said, don't go into it, I trust you. One of those soldiers is Specialist Braden Cook, who is with us today. Where's Braden? Where's, oh, Braden, good location, Braden. Very good. Last October, his team came under heavy fire while cleaning and clearing. We're clearing them out. Taliban strongholds in various locations in Afghanistan. An Afghan soldier fighting alongside U.S. troops was badly wounded when an explosive detonated nearby. Specialist Cook braved the hail of bullets and mortar rounds all over. They said it was all over. It was heavy fire, saving the life of that wounded soldier and earning a Bronze Star for valor for his courageous action. Braden, I want to thank you. A brave young man. Thank you. Please stand up again, Braden. Right. We're also inspired by the devotion to duty shown by the family members who serve their nation here at home. Ashley Shepard is one of those family members. She's been married to Sergeant First Class Ian Shepard for more than 14 years. Ashley supports military families in every way you can imagine. She has served as a family readiness group leader, co-leader, treasurer, and assistant treasurer for 3 companies. She works hard. She raises money for scholarships, organizes charity events for Gold Star families, and feeds homeless veterans. Ashley, I want to thank you. Ashley, where is Ashley? I had a feeling that was you, Ashley. Stand up, Ashley. Thank your husband, too. Thank you. America is eternally grateful for every soldier, service member, and family member here at Fort Drum, and we are forever in the debt of every American who has ever served our nation in uniform. From the snows of Valley Forge to the jungles of Vietnam and the mountains of Afghanistan, it's just incredible what you do. A few days ago, Vice President Pence flew to Hawaii to greet the remains of some of our nation's greatest heroes, our fallen warriors who gave their lives many years ago in Korea. Now these American heroes are finally starting to come home. They will be laid to rest on American soil. We believe in no American left behind. And we believe our warfighters deserve the tools, the equipment, and resources they have earned with their blood, sweat, and tears. In a few moments, in honor of that sacred obligation, I will put my signature on the National Defense Authorization Act. This authorization will give America's warfighters the firepower they need to win any conflict quickly and decisively. Thanks to the leadership of Representative Stefanik, we're also making an unprecedented commitment to developing our artificial intelligence capabilities. In order to maintain America's military supremacy, we must always be on the cutting edge. That is why we are also proudly reasserting America's legacy of leadership in space. Our foreign competitors and adversaries have already begun weaponizing space, developing new technologies to disrupt vital communications, blind satellites, and you look at what they're doing. They've given me rundowns. I've seen things that you don't even want to see, what they're doing and how advanced they are. We'll be catching them very shortly. They want to jam transmissions, which threaten our battlefield operations and so many other things. We will be so far ahead of them in a very short period of time, your head will spin. China even launched a new military division to oversee its warfighting programs in space. Just like the air, the land, the sea, space has become a warfighting domain. It is not enough to merely have an American presence in space. We must have American dominance in space, and that is why just a few days ago, the Vice President outlined my administration's plan to create a sixth branch of the United States military called the United States Space Force. Gotta get it, Joe. Gotta get it, Joe. Right, Joe? Right? We will ensure that the next great chapter in history is written by the heroes of the United States military. America will always rise to every challenge and overcome every danger because we are backed by the strength and power of the American soldier. Speaking to his troops, General George Patton, a great one, once said, "We have the finest equipment and the best spirit and the best men in the world." Now, if it were today, he would be saying the best men and women in the world. Things do change. But that was quite a statement many years ago. Continuing his remarks, Patton then declared, "I don't want to get any messages saying I am holding my position. We are not holding a damn thing. We are advancing constantly." That was Patton. Nearly 75 years later, Patton's words still ring true. America has the best equipment anywhere in the world. We have the best spirit, the best soldiers ever to set foot on any battlefield, anywhere, at any time. We are the most powerful. We are the best funded. We are the biggest. We are the strongest. We are the smartest. And we are still not holding a damn thing because America is on the move once again, and we are not backing down. Our country is respected again. I don't know if you see it. but America is respected again. There's a big difference, and a big difference in the air. You take a look around. There's a big, beautiful difference. We are advancing forward with our confidence renewed, our might restored, and the unwavering conviction that our destiny is our victory. America's future is safe, sound, and brighter than ever, because each of you is mountain tough, mountain proud, and mountain strong, and always will be climbing to glory. You will be climbing to glory. Thank you again for the incredible men and women of Fort Drum. Special, special, great people. God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America. I'd now like to invite a few of our fantastic soldiers from the 10th Mountain Division, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, to join me on stage to sign the National Defense Authorization Act. It's been an honor to be with you today. Thank you all very much. Thank you. This is it, but I'll just sign one page, right? Or we'll be here a long time. Okay, that's good, right? There you go, Ted, right? Come here. You spread them around, okay? Thank you very much, fellas. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody. Great honor. Thank you. Thank you. Mike, thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Alyssa Ash and I am really excited to share with you guys some notes from today. So hold on one second. I'm going to pull that up. Stay tuned. I'm going to get rid of this echo real quick. Hey guys, sorry about that. We had an echo on the computer behind me. I wanted to get rid of that real quick so you won't have to deal with that. But it's been so good seeing you guys over in the chat room. Some regulars, some moderators. JC is here and the British Patriot. Some of our moderators, Barbara Braley, Webster Cal. Thank you so much for joining us throughout this stream today. Roger Vega is here as well. Welcome. It's so great to be back with you guys. So I'm going to kind of go through Vice President Mike Pence's remarks and then President Trump's remarks, and then we're going to kind of really dig into what this bill is. So stay tuned. And of course, if you just watch this stream, I would love for you guys to share your thoughts as well. So please send them to my Twitter at AlyssaRSBN. And it is going to be a lot of fun. Love seeing your comments over here on YouTube. And I'm going to pull up Facebook real quick as well so I don't miss those. Hope everyone's having a great day so far. Okay. Okay, so first we are just going to go through what Vice President Mike Pence said, some highlights in case you missed it. So he talked about how President Trump always has and always will put our armed forces first and our families first. And he said that the president has signed the largest increase in military spending in more than a decade. He also talked about how President Trump has secured commitments from our allies all around the world, including our NATO allies, to pay more. You guys saw this recently at the NATO summit because just for years and years, other countries were not paying what they were supposed to, and President Trump is finally putting an end to that. And let's see, Vice President Mike Pence also discussed how the days of arbitrary budget cuts to national defense are over. And he also said that the armed forces of the USA are the world's greatest force for good. And it was just beautiful to see thousands of soldiers out in Fort Drum. The president recognized many as well. And we're going to kind of get into that a little bit as I tell you his remarks as well. So President Trump opened up by thanking the 10th Mountain Division, which is based out of Fort Drum, and the 3rd Battalion, 6th Field Artillery. And he said that nobody stands a chance against you folks. President Trump also talked about how the National Defense Authorization Act is the best investment in our military to strengthen our military like never before. And he also said that, yes, after years of devastating cuts, we're rebuilding our military like never before. He also recognized Secretary of Defense Shauna Hahn, General Miller, and Admiral Richardson. And he said we would not be here without the dedicated efforts of the members of Congress. He thanked them for their work, and he said this bill was actually easy to pass in Congress. He said this bill will increase pay and support military families. And he also recognized the first woman ever to fly a fighter jet in U.S. history, Congresswoman Martha McSally, and he had her stand up and everyone applauded her excitedly. And then President Trump thanked the spouses and family members at Fort Drum for really just all of their support behind the scenes. And he also said that a strong military requires a strong economy. And right now we have the strongest economy we've ever had. And he said, we are creating manufacturing jobs again. And then he shared, of course, those statistics he loves to share, that right now we have the lowest numbers ever in history in African American unemployment, in Hispanic unemployment, in Asian American unemployment, and that it's not quite the lowest ever, but close. Women's unemployment is at a 65-year low. And let's see. President Trump also said, in order to maintain America's military supremacy, we must always be on the cutting edge, and this is why we are militarizing space. And he talked about what other countries have sent up to space so far, plans he's seen. He said it's just so terrifying that we would not even want to see it. And he said it's not enough to have an American presence in space. We must have American dominance. And President Trump said, we are backed by the strength and power of the American soldier. And he said, we are the most powerful, strongest, most funded, and America is respected again. So those are some highlights from the president's speech today. And let's see, I'm going to pull this pop-out chat after. I want to make sure I am seeing everything you guys are saying. And I kind of want to get into with you as well just what this bill really is. Okay, I found the official text from congress.gov, but I want to make sure, I want to break it down for you guys just so it's a little bit easier to understand. Hold on. Had a great article earlier from PBS. Okay, so getting into the specifics of it, what does the bill actually do? And this is from pbs.org. So the Constitution requires that Congress provide for the common defense, and every year the House and Senate come together to pass the annual National Defense Authorization Act. And this bill does not fund the military, but it authorizes the policies under which funding will be set by the appropriations committees. So this year's $717 billion Defense Authorization Act is an attempt to follow through on White House and Pentagon strategy documents that shift the U.S. focus away from counterterrorism to the strategic threats posed by China and Russia. But it's also a congressional expression posed by China and Russia. No, I'm sorry, but it is also a congressional expression of concern and even a means of restraint, experts say, on the president's policies toward Russia, China, and the Koreas. And it does provide service members the largest pay hike in 9 years, which will be such a blessing for them. So kind of showing what it focuses on, breaking down the different countries. So in Russia, the bill includes a $6.3 billion in funding for the presence of U.S. troops in Europe. And this is actually the largest amount of money spent on U.S. troops since the Cold War. And the bill also moves the Europe-based troops one step closer to permanent deployment. And the European Deterrence Initiative, which was created after Russia annexed Crimea, was originally the European Reassurance Initiative. And this has since been renamed to make it more clear that the intention is to deter Russia. And it recreates some of the Cold War era pre-positioned stocks of materials in case they're needed, upgrades anti-submarine warfare, increases the presence of Army and Air Force troops, and builds up air and missile defenses for ground forces, and increases intelligence and information sharing with allies. And checking out your comments over here in YouTube. Let's see, Nikki Loves Dogs said we need increasing drone and robot use within the U.S. military and U.S. Navy because it's much safer for the environment and eliminates injury or death of innocent beings. Thank you, Nikki, for sharing that. Really appreciate your comment. And Citybird said SpaceX taking us into a new era of space travel across our globe. So maybe this will be the case. So maybe this will be use case for space armies. Thank you, Citybird. Okay, and Sorrel Overton, I see your comment. Thank you very much for your donation that you sent last week. I don't know that we still have those thank you emails going out, but I will check on that with Joe when he gets back. Okay, so talking about the bill, it also extends military assistance to Ukraine by 2 years, and it forces the Treasury to brief Congress on Russian President Vladimir Putin's assets. It extends legal prohibition on military-to-military cooperation with Russia, and it strengthens prohibition on funding any activity that would recognize Russian sovereignty over Crimea. And this has been in the bill every year since 2014, but it's stronger than in the past. It also pushes the administration to define and fight harder against a malign influence coming from Russia by assigning the task to a particular National Security Council official. And it requires the president to confirm he has imposed sanctions on Russia over a nuclear weapons treaty the U.S. accuses Russia of breaking, and temporarily bans the administration from extending a separate nuclear weapons treaty. And it also requires the president to submit plans for additional sanctions to Congress. And while this might not change policy, the executive branch has to take congressional mandates like this one seriously. So in China, the bill bans ZTE and Huawei purchasing by the U.S. government. So in case you're kind of not familiar with this, going into a little bit of background with you guys. So after President Trump cut a deal with China over ZTE, China paid a fine, essentially forcing Congress to water down language that would have banned the companies from the U.S. entirely. But officials, backing up a little bit here, but officials on the Appropriations committees believe the latest language is strong enough to correct Chinese behavior. And it also strengthens the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States to help combat predatory Chinese behavior in the U.S. and provides the Department of Defense greater export control when foreign investors seek to buy U.S. companies. And in the past, the Department of Commerce has controlled export controls, and Commerce has different priorities than the Department of Defense. And appropriators hope that giving the DoD power to sit at the table will force the U.S. to think of possible deals through the lens of national security rather than business. And this bill also requires a whole of government strategy on China and strengthens support for Taiwan's military capacity. So also kind of looking at the Koreas, North Korea and South Korea, the bill prohibits the Pentagon from reducing troop numbers in South Korea below 22,000 unless the Secretary of Defense certifies it's in America's national security interest and that he has consulted with U.S. regional allies. And this is a reflection of genuine lack of congressional trust in the president after President Trump described the U.S.-South Korea exercises as war games and questioned the importance of keeping U.S. troops in South Korea. So it also accelerates the integration of the THAAD U.S. missile defense into South Korea's military. Now, over in Turkey, the bill prohibits the delivery of the F-35 to Turkey until the Department of Defense produces a report about Turkey. And this could give Secretary of Defense James Mattis leverage over Turkey policy at a sensitive time in the bilateral relationship, though he has come out against this provision in the past. So in Saudi Arabia and Yemen, the bill actually restricts in-flight refueling for Saudi-led coalition flights over Yemen, requires the Department of Defense to investigate human rights abuses, and, asks for more reporting on what U.S. forces are doing in Yemen. And these are the farthest reaching provisions on Yemen passed into law, and they're also relatively specific about operations, which is usually a sign that Congress is not happy with a particular policy. So also on the nuclear side of things, the bill authorizes a new lower yield submarine-based ballistic missile warhead as requested by the Pentagon. And some other items included in the bill: a new senior official in charge of civilian casualties. The Trump administration has pushed authority for airstrikes downward and has talked about increasing airstrikes. And there is some concern that has increased civilian casualties. And it has also strengthened congressional oversight over sensitive military operations. And the Obama and Trump administrations drastically increased the number of kill capture missions around the world. And this provision improves oversight on those missions by removing some of the geographic reporting restrictions that existed in the past. And let's see, I'm going to find some more background information on this bill for you guys, just so you can understand it a little bit better. Thank you, James Wolfe, for your kind comment, and Nikki Loves Dogs. Really appreciate you guys and your positive comments and support. And Gregory Ash, thank you for being here. Okay, and I kind of want to go through a timeline with you guys. This is from the armedservices.house.gov, so the official website. I want to go through the timeline with you guys of the National Defense Authorization Act and share with you guys the different names it has actually had over the different years. Okay, so in 1962, the purpose of the bill was to authorize aircraft, missiles, and naval vessels appropriation. And then again in 1962, they updated it to authorize additional appropriations for aircraft, missiles, naval vessels for the armed forces and for other purposes. That is in addition to the funds authorized to be appropriated during the fiscal year 1962 for the use of the armed forces of the United States for procurement of aircraft, missiles, and naval vessels as authorized by law. And then it was updated to be named Extra Funds Approved for Planes, Missiles, Ships. And then in 1963, the purpose of the bill was research, development, test, and engineering for aircraft, missiles, and naval vessels. In authorized appropriations during fiscal year 1963 for aircraft, missiles, naval vessels for the armed forces, and for other purposes. And I'm going to real quick check my Twitter messages and make sure you guys haven't said anything yet. Okay, it doesn't look like I have anything right now pertaining to the president's signing of the bill today or his speech, but remember, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions, so please send them over to my Twitter at AlyssaRSBN, and I will get back to you on here. So moving on a little bit, in 1964, the purpose was aircraft, missiles, naval vessels appropriation. And the purpose was to authorize appropriations during fiscal year 1964 for procurement, research, development, test, and evaluation of aircraft, missiles, and naval vessels for the armed forces and for other purposes. And $15 billion was authorized. In 1965, it was the Armed Forces Appropriation Authorization. And in 1966, the Procurement of Tracked Combat Vehicles in Armed Forces Appropriation Authorization 1966. And from 1967 to 1969, it was still named the Armed Forces Appropriation Authorization. And let's see, I want to see when the switch really happened. In 1970, there was procurement of other weapons in the Armed Forces Appropriation Authorization 1970. And then Congress authorizes controversial ABM funds. In 1971, there was actually procurement of torpedoes and related support equipment, active duty personnel strengths of each component of the armed forces in the Armed Forces Appropriation Authorization. And then in the CQ Almanac in 1970, there was a journal, Congress Authorizes Defense Funds After Long Debate. In 1972, it was the Armed Forces Appropriation Authorization. 1973, average military training student loads of each component of the armed forces in Armed Forces Appropriation Authorization 1973. And in 1974 and 1975, it was called the Department of Defense Appropriation Authorization Act. And in 76, the Military Construction of Ammunition Facilities in the Department of Defense Appropriation Authorization Act. And in 1977 to 1980, it was named the Department of Defense Appropriation Authorization Act. In 1981, there was an update, operation and maintenance of DoD and all its components in the Department of Defense Authorization Act. And then in the Almanac, a journal titled Congress Clears $52.8 billion Defense Bill. In 1982, there was a procurement of ammunition and other procurement in the Department of Defense Authorization Act. In 1983, again named Department of Defense Authorization Act. In 1984, an update, working capital funds in the Department of Defense Authorization Act. And $187.5 billion set for defense build-up. Now, in 1985 through 86, it was named the Department of Defense Authorization Act. And then, let's see, all the way from 1987 to 1998, it was titled the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year, and then whatever year, insert there. In 99, it was the Strom-Thurmond Department of Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 99. In 2000, back to that name that it is today, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2000. And it pretty much stayed that name with some slight variation. Let's see, with some special names. 2001, the Floyd D. Spence National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2001. In 2003, the Bob Stump National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2003. In 2005, the Ronald W. Reagan National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2005. In 2007, the John Warner National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2007. In 2009, the Duncan Hunter National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2009. And in 2011, the Ike Skelton National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2011. And it changed a little bit in, let's see, 2015. The Carl Levin and Howard P. Buck McKeon National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2015. Okay, and sorry for the pause here. Just trying to find some more information for you guys. I saw your question here, Renegade MS. What's significant about the bill President Trump signed? Can you give me a synopsis of this? Basically, he is supporting military families, authorizing more money to the military, and increasing their paycheck. I think I just read it was more than it has been in the past 9 years. And I was reading the different years. I see you guys commenting the years you were born and when you graduated. So much fun. And I also want to share with you guys some of President Trump's tweets about today. Okay, he tweeted a couple hours ago. Just landed at Fort Drum, New York. Looking forward to making a speech about our great heroes. And great heroes is in all caps. Okay, and got a great message from Fiscal that I want to share with you guys, or Brass on Twitter. He said the great economy and the rebuilding of the military by President Trump, they are all great, and they all have one thing in common. It takes people to keep it going. So now we need to see the administration focus more on the national education system. Though we are all diverse, but we all share one thing in common. We all go through the education system. Look what 8 years of liberal education did to the country. It gives us Antifa. If the next generation truly understands American history, they will respect their country and fight for it to keep America great and not to try to destroy it. Thank you so much for your great message, Fiscal. Really appreciate your insight there. So kind of just, now this is not this year, this is last year, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit of background before we finish this up. So the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2018, I'm going to go through the document from the Armed Services.Senate for you guys. So it says that one of Congress's most important constitutional responsibilities is providing for the common defense. And to fulfill this fundamental duty, Congress has for the last 55 consecutive years passed the National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA, which authorizes funding and provides authorities for the U.S. military. So the Senate Armed Services Committee voted unanimously, and this is last year, 27-0 to advance this important legislation to the Senate floor. And the Senate Armed Services Committee takes seriously its obligation to our men and women in uniform and their families, as well as the civilians and contractors who support our armed forces. And their service represents the best of our country, and this committee and the Congress honor their sacrifice. So last year, the committee markup of the National Defense Authorization year for fiscal year 2018 contributed a total of $640 billion for national defense, which is of course less than our $717 billion this year, which exceeded the president's budget request. and the spending cap of the Budget Control Act. So the committee believes this authorization is necessary to help the U.S. military restore readiness, rebuild capacity, and modernize the force for future challenges. And the committee markup also builds on the important work of previous legislation to ensure our military is prepared to fulfill the missions of today and rise to the challenges of tomorrow. And I see your question, JC, and I'm sorry I haven't responded yet on Twitter. You said, is there money allotted for the border wall in the bill? I have not seen that yet in this bill, but I will keep searching for you. So also we're talking about last year. So the committee markup authorized critical funding for the Department of Defense to rebuild a ready and capable force by increasing maritime capacity, procuring combat aircraft and munitions, and reducing the shortfall in end strength. And it also ensures the long-term viability of the all-volunteer force by improving the quality of life of men and women of the total force, their active duty, National Guard, and reserves, their families, and DoD civilian personnel through fair play and policies, as well as continued reform of the military health system. And it continues a comprehensive overhaul of the acquisition system to ensure that our men and women in uniform have the equipment they need to succeed and to drive innovation by allocating funds for advanced technology development and next generation capabilities to ensure America's military dominance. So it advances our ability to protect our allies, partners, and friends, and it enhances the capability of U.S. armed forces and the security forces of allied and partner nations to fight ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other violent extremist organizations. And we just received a $2 donation from MB Shemez. Thank you so much for that, MB. Really appreciate you. Who said MAGA said. Thank you so much. So also looking at the bill last year, it improved the ability of the U.S. Armed Forces to counter threats in the information domain, including space, cyber, and electronic warfare. And it reduced the threats from nuclear weapons and materials by strengthening non-proliferation programs, modernizing our nuclear deterrent, and ensuring the safety, security, and reliability of our nuclear stockpile, delivery systems, and infrastructure. And it also terminates troubled or redundant programs and activities, identities, efficiencies, and reduces unnecessary defense expenditures to make the best use of taxpayer dollars. And it promoted aggressive and thorough oversight of the department's programs and activities to ensure compliance with relevant laws and regulations and proper stewardship of taxpayer dollars. And of course, I want to know your thoughts about this as well. So make sure you're commenting them right here down below in the YouTube chat, and you can send them to me on Twitter as well. I love interacting with you guys on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is @AlyssaRSBN. Thank you, Don Childers, for your comment. And good to have you in the chat room, Moonman Huckabee Sanders. And great comment from Alex Freedom. He said he needs another term, fix schools and fix the prison system. Thank you, Alex, for that. And okay, I think that is all I have for you guys right now on the National Defense Authorization Act. But thank you so much for tuning in. Really glad to have you guys on the stream and then for the post show as well. And stay tuned, as I will have an interview that should be posted later today and my post show at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Not my post show, my nightly news recap. Those will be back. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be so much fun. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate each and every one of you. And I'll see you soon.